share your bio to all our attendees and global speakers as well so that they know about Dr. Donna Lindsay. Over to you.
Awesome.
So, welcome on stage Dr. Donna Lindsay. So, Dr. Donna Lindsay is a certified professional coach and self love strategist. With 15 years of experience, she empowers individuals, groups, and organizations using love based principles to enhance overall performance. She is the founder and CEO of Donna Lindsay Coaching and Consulting LLC, known for her Love Me First masterclass, guiding participants in their self love journey by overcoming barriers and embracing unconditional self love. Thank you so much, Dr. Lindsay. You can occupy the stage.
Good
Thank
luck for
you. I
you.
greatly appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. Actually, it's almost evening here where I am. I'm not sure where you are. It could be morning, it could be afternoon, but whatever time frame it is, hello and welcome. I'm so glad that you all could be here. As these wonderful women have shared, my name is Dr. Donna Lindsay, and my entire platform is surrounded or centered around love. This is to me what the world needs and doesn't realize how much they need it. But today I'm going to be talking to you about self-love. So I'm hoping that you enjoy the presentation. So specifically, what about self-love are we going to be talking about? We're going to be embarking on the transformative journey of self-love. And one of the things that I want to put out there is that self-love is a process. It's not microwavable. It's not a pill that you can take and it's automatically going to be a part of your bloodstream. But self-love is going to be a process that you possibly start today, and you will be working yourself through that process throughout the rest of your days. So that word, when we hear that word transformative or the word transformation, and I'm an educator, 30 years in the field of education, but I still look up words. Words fascinate me. And even though I may know the definition of a word, I still look it up, not to make sure, but just to have another aha moment. Sometimes when you reread a thing, there's another revelation. There's another source of inspiration that comes from that. So when I went to the word transformation or transformative, it is causing a marked change in something or someone. It is a lesson or experience that inspires change or causes a shift in your viewpoint. So when we're embarking upon this journey, this self-love journey, this transformative journey of self-love, this is essentially what we're going to be inviting into our space, marked change. We're also going to be inviting change that inspires us to shift our perception, to shift our viewpoint, and to shift our outlook on what we've experienced thus far and how what we've experienced can now thrust us forward. So transformation, what is required in order for something to be transformed? And as you saw in the previous slide, there was a potter working with some clay. And I'm assuming, I've worked with clay a little bit, that you add a little bit of water and there's a whole process that's taking place depending on how quickly the wheel is moving, how gently your hands are adhering to the clay, maybe putting a little pressure, maybe refraining from having that pressure. Transformation requires a surrender. It would be very, very hard for a potter to mold and shape a boulder, to mold and shape a rock. So I say to you today that before embarking upon this journey, it's important that you understand that it's going to require you to surrender. I know for the world at large, on social media and so many programming that we watch on TV, that nobody really wants to do that. Nobody really wants to show that area of weakness, or not necessarily weakness, but to show that they're willing to open themselves up and allow the process to have its way. The next thing that you're going to need is vulnerability, and from there, transparency. So those three pieces are needed in order for you to be transformed, in order for you to be molded, in order for you to be shaped, in order for you to be stripped, purged, and pruned. You're going to need to surrender. You're going to need to find yourself in a vulnerable space and being transparent, most importantly, with self. So Heart and mind, let's make the connection. They have a very, very intricate place in the work of self-love. When we do not deal with the matters of the heart, they become thoughts of the mind. So this transformative journey that we're embarking on is going to cause us to not only revisit our thoughts, but to also take a look at what we could be harboring in our hearts. Maybe there's some things that we've been through, trauma, poor decisions, mishaps, failures, shortcomings, character flaws, whatever the case may be. And these things have kind of either been suppressed, we've disassociated from those things because we think if we don't think about it, then it no longer exists. Sometimes we've just dismissed them. When they arise, we dismiss them. Instead of addressing them, we dismiss them from our thought process. But I say to you again, when we don't deal with the matters of our heart, they become thoughts of our mind. And oftentimes when we're interacting with people, we often say to ourselves, I wonder why he said that to me, or I wonder why she said that. Why did she make that comment? We're in a staff meeting. Where did that comment come from? We're at a place of worship. That was an interesting conversation, because when we don't deal with the matters of the heart, what happens is they eventually come out of our mouthpiece. So the first thing that we need to do as we begin this transformative process, this embarking on this self-love journey, is identify the barriers to our positive thinking. What is hindering us from moving forward? Unresolved, unaddressed, suppressed, or dismissed issues become barriers. So issues that become barriers, what are some of those things that some of you out there have experienced, that I have experienced? Have you experienced neglect? Have you experienced abuse, whether that's mental, physical, emotional abuse, manipulation? Maybe you've had someone in the early stages of your journey as a child, or maybe as a teenager, or even as an adult, you've experienced manipulation. You've experienced deception, someone that maybe wasn't forthcoming or fully transparent or honest or integrous with you. Maybe you've experienced dysfunction, rejection, abandonment, bitterness, resentment, or even unforgiveness. All of these are issues that can essentially become barriers as we embark upon this transformative journey of self-love. So when we fail to address these issues that have taken residence in our hearts, they eventually lead to what I would consider toxic thoughts. They manifest in the form of fear, abandonment, low self-esteem, poor confidence, negativity, self-destruction, degrading behavior, ungrateful behavior, or we have those that oftentimes like to play the victim. Everybody's against them. The world at large is against them. Their mama is against them. Their dad's against them. Their kids are against them. The dog is against them, right? They're playing the victim. Now, I want to say this before I move forward. Oftentimes people ask me, well, who is your target audience? Do you go to like shelters and work with women that have been abused? Do you work with some of the students that you work with, that you teach? Because 30 years I've been working in the field of special education. So I've worked with some kids that have some emotional challenges. They have some challenges academically. They have some psychological challenges. But no, those are not the people that I believe I'm called to. I believe that I'm called to individuals that look just like me and you, that have tons of letters behind their name, a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD, CEOs, doctors, physicians of all kinds. Those are the individuals that I'm called to, because whether we believe it or not, sometimes we have all of these accolades in an effort to cover up what we've been harboring. A lot of times we find ourselves moving in certain circles, moving into certain neighborhoods, wearing a certain brand of clothes, or letting people know where we shop, and entertaining only certain conversations from certain people, because we want to hide. Okay. And as I'm known here in South Florida for saying, we have to stop putting lipstick on a pig. We are the ones that are called to lead. We are the ones that are called to lead from the front, lead from the back, lead from the side. People are watching our forever example. And so it's so vitally important that we dig deep into the recesses of our heart and we really tap in and tune into what we've been harboring, what we've been disassociating, and what things we've allowed to remain in our heart that have now become toxic thoughts. So these barriers that lead to toxic thoughts, I want to say this. Some may not present as fear. Some may not present as low self-esteem. Some may not present as someone who is demonstrating inadequacy, but it could come off as overly confident, overly aggressive, overly assertive, that workaholic, that individual that's arrogant and hard to get along with. They're haughty. They think they're all of that, as we say, in a bag of chips. This is imbalance. And so oftentimes when I run into people like this and you know, my family's like, oh boy, here she goes. Oh no, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't. And I do it. I do it because for me, ultimately, at the end of the day, healing is what's most important. But I say to individuals that are operating in this capacity, overly confident. Confidence is one thing, but when you're taking it to another level, you're just going above and beyond to show the audience or to show those that you're in the midst of that you're confident. What are you overcompensating for? Or why are you overcompensating? What are you hiding from the circle that you are currently standing in? So the 4-step process that I've created for burial removal, okay? So this is essentially looking deep within the recesses of our heart, addressing those thoughts that are shifting and moving throughout our mind. The first thing that we want to be able to do is identify the problem. What is the negative thought that you're having? When does the negative thought occur the most? Does it occur when we're coming onto platforms like this and you're having to speak before an audience? Is it maybe when you're in a more intimate setting? Is it when you feel threatened? Is it when you don't necessarily feel prepared enough, even though you've spent a wealth of months preparing? The next thing that we want to do is we want to analyze the problem. Why is the negative thought occurring? Why is it happening? And I know that some of you have already spoken and said, oftentimes it's to block us from moving forward. Oftentimes it comes to paralyze us and keep us stuck in a place where we can help no one and not even ourselves. But I know that if we dig deeper, we will be able to better understand why that negative thought is occurring. What motivates or encourages this negative thought, right? Do you begin to pacify yourself? Do you like how the pacification of other people make you feel? That's food for thought. Maybe it's attention-seeking behavior. And yes, attention-seeking behavior is not just for the 5-year-old. I work with 65, 70-year-old people that are still seeking the attention of their spouses, of their friends, and it's all based on what they did not receive as a child. The third step in this process is action plan design. So what are you going to do? Now that you know that you have these negative thoughts, what are you going to do about the negative thought? Are you just going to let it sit there? Are you just going to let it float around in your mind and just keep floating day to day to day to day, almost like a ship in the sea that has no port to dock? Well, this is where we employ some strategies. So essentially, what strategies will you use to remove that thought? And there are so many strategies. One that I love is journaling. It's so simple. Pen and paper, pen and notebook, and you just sit down and you write your thoughts. Allow yourself to become transparent and vulnerable within your journal. There are other things that you can do that we'll get into in the presentation. And then, of course, you want to put an action plan in place. Okay? Did you implement your action plan consistently? So once you're done with that action plan design, now we want to evaluate our action plan. Did we implement it on a daily basis? When we found ourselves in the midst of crisis, did we do the strategy that we said we were going to do? Did we incorporate those breathing techniques? Did we speak life into ourselves through the use of affirmations? Okay. And then we want to evaluate based on these strategies that we've implemented, have the negative thoughts decreased or possibly prayerfully dissipated? So now the next piece, learning to love yourself unconditionally and unapologetically. This is the next phase in the transformative journey to self-love. One of the things that I want to dispel right away, because I've had so many individuals invite me onto their podcasts and onto their platforms, even into places of worship to talk about self-love. And one of the things that I want to dismiss is the myth that self-love is, it's not a selfish thing. If I don't know how to love myself unconditionally and unapologetically, how am I going to love you? Very, very hard to do. We like to convince ourselves that we love our neighbor, that we love our coworker, that we love our friend, that we love that old lady down the street that every time we pass by our house, she gives us that mean and last nasty look, right? But one of the things that I say is that self-love is not selfish. It is literally a necessary thing. It's a matter of life and death. Because when I learn how to love myself more effectively, when I learn how to love myself unconditionally and unapologetically, then I can better love you. So, what are the characteristics of love? Right? We have all of these things that we've heard over time. We have programs that we've watched, and we're like, oh, that's so sweet. That's love. Quite frankly, this is what love is. Love is patient. So I say to yourself, are you being patient? As you were preparing to come to the summit today, was this something that you wrestled with? Were you having challenges with being patient with yourself? Do you have difficulty being kind to yourself, right? Love is patient. It is kind. It is selfless. It is sacrificial. It is refined. It's humble. It's thoughtful. It's gentle. It's meek. Love succeeds, it protects, it trusts, it hopes, it perseveres, and it appreciates truth. What I will say is that love is not easily angered. It's not easily frustrated. It's not a scorekeeper. It's not jealous or envious of someone else. When I learn how to do what is here, when I learn how to be more patient with myself, kind, sacrificial, refined, humble, thoughtful, gentle, and meek towards myself, then I will be able to provide the same to someone else. So this is a part of a plan that I created, and it is what I call the Self-Love Success Plan. It is a 5-step process, and each of these are the pillars to the 5-step process. So the first pillar is acknowledge, and I'll go through these in greater detail in a few moments. The next is accept, approve, appreciate, and affirm. So the first thing that we want to be able to do is that we want to admit the truth or the existence of what you harbor within. There are some, I've heard the stories today, and even yesterday, when I was watching on yesterday, there are some that have gone through their process. They've had to revisit some things. They've had to dig up some things, and they've done the work, whether it was by themselves, reading a book, with a therapist, through prayer, through meditation. They had to go back and revisit some things. And as a result of them doing that, they're able to come to the platform and share and reach back and pull someone else. However, there are some that are still in this phase, right? Where we're having challenges admitting the truth or the existence of what we're harboring. This is very, very important. Failure to acknowledge what lies within becomes very, very toxic. And so we want to make sure that as we're moving through this process, this is something that we will do over and over and over and over again. Because oftentimes what I say is, yeah, you may graduate from kindergarten acknowledgement, but now you're in 3rd grade acknowledgement. Now you're in 6th grade acknowledgement. Now you're at university level acknowledgement. We need to admit the truth or the existence of what we're harboring. So how do we do that? Well, one of the greatest things I love to do is prayer and meditation. Not only am I dialoguing with the Lord, but I'm allowing him to speak back to me. I'm spending times in quietness. And in those moments of quiet, I'm also reflecting. I'm reflecting on my life's journey. I'm reflecting on things that I've been through. I'm reflecting on things that were said to me, things that were done to me. And so just to give you an example, this is essentially what I go through. So I reflect and then I recognize, if for whatever reason I'm picking up abandonment, or I'm identifying abandonment as something that I'm still harboring in my heart, I know that there's a very strong possibility that this abandonment has now turned into control, and I need to release that control. People just don't come out of the womb and they're controlling. People just don't come out of the womb and they're rude and disrespectful. They don't come out of the womb and they're mean and nasty. Okay. There's something underlying that is triggering this behavior. And so ultimately, when we're at the acknowledgement phase, when we're at this pillar, we are digging deep. We're going deep into the recesses of the heart. We're unveiling, we're uncovering, and we're uprooting some of those experiences that have brought about these issues. Verbal abuse. Verbal abuse could eventually manifest itself in the form of insecurity. So if you had a parent that was verbally abusive, if you had a spouse that was verbally abusive, your insecurity is coming from a place. You weren't wired this way. You weren't born this way. But this life experience is essentially what has thrusted you into this mode of insecurity. If you've experienced rejection, let's say, for example, you were given up for adoption. You've never met your parents. Let's say you were dating a guy and only to find out that he was dating 5 other girls, right? Or maybe there was a guy that you liked and or a partner that you liked and you felt rejected. Now you're constantly in the faces of your supervisor and your spiritual leader because you have an approval addiction. You're looking for people to approve your existence. Acknowledgement is very, very important. One of the most challenging. It is the first pillar, one of the most challenging because it has you to go back and to dig up and uproot some of those things that you've suppressed, that you've disassociated yourself with, that you put on the shelf and said, not today, not tomorrow, not ever am I going to address that again. The next pillar in this 5-step process is to accept, right? So we are granting ourselves permission to be received as adequate or suitable, regardless of what we've been through, regardless of where we currently are. We have to learn to accept ourselves for who we are. So yes, almost everyone that I speak to, they're like, Donna, you don't understand. I'm a really, really good person. I'm a good person. I give to the hungry. I feed the poor. I take care of the sick. I do this, I do that, I do this. Yes, but I just observed you last week and you were extremely rude to that student in the hallway. Where is that coming from? Okay, but here's the thing. I get that you do all of these wonderful things. Continue to do those wonderful things. And I know you like to be praised and receive feedback on those wonderful things. But in addition to that, I need you to hear me when I'm talking to you about those things that need to be accepted that are not so good. We have to understand that we are all a work in progress. None of us is perfected. None of us has arrived. So we also need to begin to not only accept the things about us that are well, but we need to accept the things about ourselves that are not well, so that we can begin to do the work that is necessary to bring correction, reformation, and transformation to those areas. So how do we do that? There are several questions that you can ask yourself. And if you want to know more, I'll tell you how you can get access to that a little bit later. But when you accept yourself, how do you receive yourself? Ask yourself some questions. What obstacles are hindering you from accepting yourself? What are some of the obstacles that are hindering you? Could it be a parent? Could it be a sibling? Could it be a situation, a circumstance? How has the lack of self-acceptance impacted your journey? Because you're not being accepted by other individuals, because you're not first accepting yourself, how has it impacted your life's journey? Has the lack of self-acceptance impacted your relationships? Food for thought. How has the lack of self-acceptance impacted your career? Many of us on here are very career-driven. Yours truly is as well. How has the lack of self-acceptance impacted your productivity? All right. And then we have approve. To have or express a favorable opinion of ourselves. And I often say this, before anyone else's approving of you, it's important that you are approving of yourself, right? You don't need someone to co-sign your existence. You don't need someone to pat you on the head and say, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing." You have to find yourself favorable in your own eyes. And so, one of the ways that we do this, and I love doing this for myself, how do you practice self approval? Writing your love letters. This is essentially how you practice self approval, or one of the ways that I express to my clients and people that I work with. Write yourself a love letter every now and then. When you're wrestling with approval, tell yourself, how amazing you are, even with all of your faults, even with all of your weaknesses, even with all of your shortcomings. Write yourself a love letter. Appreciation. This is valuing or highly admiring the full worth of yourself, right? So looking at yourself as someone that is valuable or highly admirable. Self-care does not replace self-love. It is a valuable part of the process. So one of the things that I want to say today is that although you have self-care, we're doing our nails, we're getting our hair done, we're going shopping, we're exercising, we're doing all of these amazing things. Self-care falls under this pillar of appreciation, but self-care is not self-love. Okay? So, how do you show yourself appreciation? Here are some ways, and I believe body, soul, and spirit. So we can't just take care of the outer, we have to take care of the inner as well. And so there are different ways that you can address yourself in this area, demonstrate appreciation with the body. It's so easy. It's diet, it's exercise, getting enough rest, making sure that you take care of all of your hygiene, your hair, your nails, whatever. When it comes to the soulish work, what are you doing as far as pouring out of your soul, your mind, your will, your emotions? How are you appreciating your mind? How are you appreciating your will, your choices? How are you appreciating your emotions? And then spiritually, what are you doing to tap in and appreciate your spirit? Okay, very, very, very important. And then, of course, affirm, offering yourself emotional support and encouragement. When you can't find anyone else to offer that emotional support or encouragement, you need to begin to do that for yourself. And how do we do that? We do that right here. Affirmations. I believe in speaking life into myself. I believe in decreeing and declaring over myself that I am a winner, that I am a phenomenal speaker, that I am the next voice that people need to hear. In this particular list of affirmations, I've actually dropped a link in the chat. So if you're interested in getting a free copy of these self-love affirmations, you can go over to my website and grab a free copy. What I will say, and I'll remind you again, is that self-love is an ongoing, lifelong process. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to require you to dig. It's going to require you to purge. It's going to require you to let go of some things and to take on some new thought processes, new outlooks, and new perception. I wrote a book, and my book is entitled Self-Love, A Journey, Not a Destination. This book is amazing, not just because I wrote it, but it is a book/workbook. So as you're reading, you're essentially filling out questions, doing activities that walk you through the self-love process. If you're interested in purchasing a copy, the QR code is available to you.
Thank you, Dr. Donna.
If you'd like for a conversation or anything else, this is how you can contact me.
Thank you, Dr. Donna.
Linda.
Thank you so much for your speech. And ladies and gentlemen, please take a screenshot of that, or we will post it in the chat. So you can get in touch with Dr. Donna Lindsay. Her speech about embarking on the transformative journey of self-love is beautiful, and it gave some valuable insights like journaling, affirmations, and all those topics are very well covered. Thank you so much. And yeah, over to you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, Dr. Donna, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. Since we are ahead of time, so we will send you the question to your email directly. So the speaker is already waiting. She's been waiting for 10 minutes before. So we will send you the question to your email ID. You can reply to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll
Okay,
see you around this
thank
session.
you.
Thank you. We had a great
Thank you.
time
Have
with
a
you.
great night.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
So
Bye.
please join our next speaker, Barak. Please join our next speaker session, Barak. Thank you.